as you all know, I have 3 beautiful kids, a lovely wife, and a whole lot of music in my life. And I'm just grateful for the health and the ability to juggle it all, except for words, right? I definitely trip over my tongue plenty, as you all know. But tomorrow I will be turning 40, which I'm grateful, I'm thankful that I've made it up to this point in my life with the many blessings that I've experienced and have been able to share with my family and with people out there musically. This week is crazy. Tomorrow, even though it's my birthday, I am taking the day off of work, but it's going to be jam-packed. We have all the dentist appointments with our kids, including myself and my wife. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow morning. And then after that, we're going to dirty up our grills and have a lovely lunch, and then enjoy a movie at the movies with the family. So that's in order. That's the plan. And it's going to be a great time. I will not be playing my bass tomorrow. There's no need. I don't even know if there's going to be time or motivation, but I know that this weekend there will be so much playing, so much bass. I might just give it up, but let me give you the rundown. Thursday night, I will be playing with the Abella Trio, 8:30 to 11:30 at Lucy's Lounge. That's always a great time. I'll take the full pedal board setup, lots of improvisation, a lot of liberties taken. Saturday morning, I'll be performing from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at my son's school for their car show fundraising event, and that'll be with Down For You. Nate Guzman on drums, Cesar Enamorado on keys and vocals, George Campos on the sax, myself on bass. After that, I'll be rushing to Porch Fest to perform with Fritzo from 12 to 1. And then later again at Porch Fest again with Ralph Edwards and the Vibe Check Band from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild, but that's the deal with Saturday. 3 gigs, 3 bands, but it's going to be a great time. Sunday, I have a doubleheader, which is not the usual case. I have my usual 10:30 a.m. church service gig, and then I have a second out of town, which is about an hour it's an hour and 15 minutes away, and that starts at 1:30 p.m. So, bam, bam, Sunday morning, it's going to be a heck of a day and a heck of a weekend. So the only day I have off is Friday. I'll be home with the kids. And I say with the kids because my beautiful wife will be on a girls' trip with her sister and her best friend. So, girls are going to have a great time, but they're going to be out of town, MIA, at least here locally, for 3 days. And so, I'll be juggling the kids, and I'll give you the rundown as far as what that's going to look like. Taking my little guy, the youngest, to my parents Friday morning before I go to work. I do the daily grind, teaching music at the middle school where I teach, and then I'll come and pick him up from my parents, as well as the other 2 kids from school, and then head home. Saturday morning, I will drop off all 3 kids at my parents' at 8 a.m. so that I can make my 9 a.m. downbeat with Down For You, and then I'll pick them up at 2 p.m. once I'm done with the second gig on that Saturday, and then drive them out of town to my mother-in-law's house so that they can spend the night there, which will be needed since I'll have yet another gig, a third gig Saturday evening with Vibe Check at 6:30, and then I'll pick them up around 4:30 after the second church service gig on Sunday on my way back from that out-of-town gig to mother-in-law's, which is still out of town, and then finally head home with my kids. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. It's taking a village. It's taking a lot of careful planning, text messages, talking to my wife and everything, how everything's going to work out. But again, everybody's going to have a great time, and it's just a lot of moving parts. But not every weekend's this crazy. It just happens to be this weekend where everything is happening. But grateful for the health, grateful for a supportive family, and just the ability to exercise my love for bass with multiple bands. If I list off the groups, again, that's a Bella Trio, Down For You, Fritzo, Ralph Edwards and Vibe Check Band, and then the two church services. So that's 6 different things, 6 different acts, if you will. It's a lot of music. It's my fingers may just quit on me halfway through, but I'm praying and believing that the big man upstairs is going to pull me through and that we're all going to have a great time. So that's the layout for this weekend. A lot of miles, a lot of gas. And so there's going to be that need to make sure that, again, meals are in order and that my car is fueled sufficiently, appropriately, timely, so that I can get from point A to point B without delay, especially like on those close, back-to-back gigs on Saturday morning and then Sunday, right? One service to the next. It's going to happen fast. I'm going to have to hit the road and or eat on the road, and that's fine. It's something that I've done before, but just want to make sure that I'm mentally prepared, have my ducks in a row, right? All the gear, the exit strategy, right? So that, there's no delay. Speaking of gas, okay, and there's always another pedal or piece of gear out there to go ahead and ponder on or just desire. And to be honest, like I always say, yeah, this is it. But I have a good friend out in Tennessee, and some of you remembered his name, Rick, who graciously sent me an old pedal board that he's not using, and was like, yeah, rather than it collecting dust here, I'm going to send it to you and see if you can use it, right? Make use of it. And so I have many times considered purchasing one. There's been many times where I'm like, you know what, I really don't see myself needing this or justifying it, mainly because if you know about the Vertex Travel Light board, the dimensions are 10 inches by 17. And I have a 17-inch Vertex riser, but it's on an 18-inch mono light plus pedal board so that I can place the power supply underneath the mono light pedal board, right? So it's that double-decker isolated modular unit that I can couple with my mono light short board, right? The main brain. And that's worked out for me very well. However, even then, I've been eyeing the Vertex pedal boards for some time. There is the new collab between Gator and Vertex where you have more space underneath, right? Taller feet underneath. And so therefore you can actually put a power supply underneath, which is a huge way to justify that purchase. But I'm pretty set on my sounds and work ethic, workflow, how I can take my short board or both boards and fit it in its case and set it up at a gig. And it's just, I'm used to that. However, this pedal board set it means a lot coming from a friend, and knowing that, it's not an everyday thing where you just get sent, or at least I don't, get sent a piece of gear that's, heavy duty, reputable, and it's still, in great shape. Like, I love seeing all the scratches and all the little dings here and there because it's still solid. It functions, and I kind of want to, if needed, right, I want to use that for a specific gig, or if something changes, right, in my whole, hey, I want to have all these sort of pedals at every single gig, no matter what, that could be a potential use. And just the constant reminder of some great friendship and where that comes from. Because yes, it's all vanity, right? It's all just material things, but I think value is subjective, right? And we place or give meaning to certain things, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of wanting to be thoughtful and intentional with what we do, and not take things for granted. I'm sure many of you are like that. I know I am with certain things like that. So same thing with this pedal board. I would not be in a rush to just throw any pedal on there or just to take it to any gig. I want it to be intentional. I want it to be strategic, methodical, and also practical, right? Functional. I don't want to just slap stuff on there. They're like, yeah, I took this bigger board to a gig, and I only used the same pedals that I always use. So again, if I were to take it, I want to make sure that there's validation for every unit on that board. And again, if not all, then a majority of them to be used on every single gig, right? So there's that. We'll see if there's any sort of progress on that pedal board or anchored pedals on it. I will let you know in the future. Let's see. I just want to check the time. Okay, we're doing okay. This week at work, it's been pretty crazy because we are now entering testing schedules. And so, what would be a regular 55-minute teaching block now has increased to an hour and a half, right? 90-minute block periods is wild for middle school students and for teachers, I'm sure. It is for me. However, with this, there's been a great excitement on my end as well as with my beginning percussion students. Because if you know me, I'm a huge fan of teenage engineering technology or music pieces, right? Whether you're talking about the TP7, you're talking about the TX6, you're talking about the OPXY, the OP1 Field. And my favorite in general, the one that got me started on all of this stuff and that I used probably the most on a lot of albums is the KO2. The KO2, it's always in my sling. I always take it every gig, everywhere I go, in case I find myself needing or wanting to just create a beat, some sort of loop. And in the event that a drummer, somehow bails out of a gig for whatever emergency reason, and so it's come in handy. I have definitely used it for those purposes, and including to maximize some time, right? Being creative for my own personal album recording use. I have 30 KO2s at work that I ordered this year, and it's been a blast with my advanced percussion students, teaching them how to use it and the possibilities that can be explored and made with the KO2. My advanced percussion students have had it and they've been using it for several months now. However, my beginning percussion students are now finally being introduced to the units, how to set them up, the general lay of the land, the procedures for setting up headphones in and out of their cases, etc. All that. And so you can see their eyes and faces light up, the smiles that they get when they hear, wow, these things are sonically powerful, right? They definitely present some real cool frequencies, right, to your ears. And so teaching them how to create some loops and how to navigate the sounds and all that, it's been a joy and definitely worth it, with the idea that I'm encouraging them to become creative and original. I'm encouraging them to take risks, and that music can be explored in so many different ways. You do not have to just be a drummer, with actual sticks in your hand. You can be percussive and have a digital unit that is not a computer, that is not a DAW, that isn't some sort of electric drumstick, if you will. And so the KO2, I feel, is like it's a gateway for original music production, sampling, and just empowering students to think compositionally, right? You have layers that you can record and lay down on the KO2 in a few different ways. And so I'm very excited for them and seeing their excitement right already today, right? On a 90 block period, we spent a good 40 minutes on the devices, and it was well worth it. And I know that the next time they go at it, they're going to be in great disposition. They're going to, again, enjoy something that I wish I had enjoyed when I was in middle school. I enjoyed music, in jazz band and concert band, but I definitely didn't have a specific percussion class in 7th or 8th grade. I definitely didn't have some sort of introduction to sampling, music production, and some sort of digital composition, right, with a KO2 unit. And so this kind of like evolution of music and products I think it's great. I think it's amazing that there are funds. There are, I don't want to say teachers. I don't want to toot my own horn or put myself on a pedestal, but I'm sure that there's music educators out there that will look around and try to see how they can revamp their music programs. And if not their whole music program, what is something new? What is something fresh that I can go ahead and present, even if it's just a portion of the school year, to vary up the routine, to hopefully inspire my students in some sort of new way, right? Keep looking at music as like hey, this thing doesn't just end with concert band. It doesn't just end with the winter or spring concert or whatever it is. There are moments in between those huge milestones or concerts where growth can be made, risks can be taken, and there's reward, right? That there doesn't have to be an audience present to be able to feel some satisfaction and to enjoy a product, right? A musical product. Again, I'm a huge advocate for original music as of last year, January, more than ever, right? And again, just because of my own personal experience and recording and creating new original music, it's everything. I almost feel like I never want a student to feel compelled to play a cover. Although, yes, I'm in several cover bands, and there's a lot to be learned by learning covers and performing covers. But I think that now more than ever, right, with the speed of technology, social media, AI, original human thought is more precious than ever. It needs to be more and more of a priority, right? It needs to be encouraged and maybe assisted, right? Young minds need to be assisted in learning how to generate some original ideas, right? Because I feel like maybe there is less room for that, right? When everything's so easily just fabricated, generated via AI prompt or whatever, it's just, I think it's going to be so much easier for people to not think with their own brain more and more. Again, I want to say that I'm wrong. I'd like to be wrong. But obviously there's AI music out there, which is an insane amount of, it's still great sounding. You can knock it for what it is if you do, but the products are still sounding clean. And a friend of mine just mentioned that, I think, I forget what streaming platform it is, but about 44% of their daily uploads is AI music. 44% AI music on a streaming platform. That is almost 50%. This is still fairly early on in this whole new AI thing, race, whatever, endeavor, exploration. Can you imagine in a year or two, 5 years, how much further beyond 50% will that be? Will it be 75%? Like, at what point do we say AI music is, it's what it is, but how much do we value human-made music? How much do we value original, human-generated music? Absolutely human-made music without any sort of AI assistance in the recording production process. If you're going to create a demo, if you're going to go ahead and use AI for that means, just to have some sort of product to go off of, to be able to have actual humans record and produce the music, I feel like that's a different topic. That's a more valid approach and use of it. But I personally have felt compelled to be a little more literal and explicit with my music, as raw as it is. And so from now on, starting June 1st, for that album, I will be labeling all my albums with the text of album number, whatever it is, bass, effects, TE sounds for the teenage engineering, to be, just to be transparent as to what some of the gear might be, or where the sounds may come from. And then DAW-less, because I don't use any DAW. And lastly, human-made. Does it sound petty? Does it sound unnecessary? Maybe, but it makes me feel a little better knowing that I'm going to go ahead and try to voice that out and be a little more apparent. Even if somebody can hear my stuff, says, yeah, you definitely have some rough edges. Yeah, those ideas are not polished. There's definitely a lack of mastering or insufficient mastering. I don't care. I want to label that somewhere on each album cover from now on, just to make it all the more transparent, right? Of where I'm coming from, what's going on, and the value that I do have in human made, original, non AI music. So there it is. Please don't block me. If you use AI, we can still definitely be friends. I just may not be a fan of the music and or support it in a strong fashion, right? I think the reality is that there's probably musicians out there, family that we have that exercise certain things and we love them and we support them in certain ways, yet we don't validate certain, if not lifestyles, then sort of lack of professional decisions or certain choices, right? We can definitely, I will love my kids no matter what. Whether they're straight A's or straight F's, I'm going to love my kids no matter what. And I think there's something to be said about humanity being able to support each other regardless of our, I guess, the lines drawn in sand, right? Morally speaking, regarding music. I'm not going to bring religion or politics into this, but definitely there's something to be said about humanity when we're able to love one another. We're able to support one another regardless of certain disagreements, and that can be tough. I'm not gonna play that game of like where you need to draw the line. Everybody draws the line for themselves, whether it's deliberately or maybe just circumstantially. Right? This is the way I was raised. This scenario I find myself now in, and I think the same is true about music. Kind of moving away from that, I know that there's been times where there's been either songs or music or musicians that maybe we're not 100% fan of, or we wouldn't do it that way. We wouldn't necessarily take this approach or do this or do that. Yet we still commit to the gig. We still learn the music. We still practice our instruments. We still show up and perform and sell the performance, even if we're not 100% about it. And that thought to me is right now like, wow, that's a sign of maturity. Could I look at things, could I look at things this way and say the same thing 20 years ago? I'm going to be 40 tomorrow, and I wouldn't call this extreme wisdom, but I definitely feel very strong and confident about saying this probably now. And I don't know that I would have said something like this 20 years ago. But again, being able to do the work, stand by the artist or band, regardless of our personal feelings and opinions. That's not to say you shouldn't voice them. That's not to say that you can't be an adult and communicate with the band leader or fellow musicians and say, hey, this is my opinion. Perhaps this could be explored. This might be a better way. Let's talk. What can happen? And maybe that's shared, and maybe it's not a decision that is pursued by the rest of the group, but at least you handled things in a civil manner. At least you were able to try to be a constructive criticizer, or again, you're trying to be a team player. I think to not voice certain type of opinions is also lack of maturity. Like, who are you working with? Is that who you really want to work with? If you always want to be absolutely silent and not have an opinion and not have a say musically, how your part can, assist, or how somebody else's part can be improved or is clashing with yours for whatever legit, logical music theory reason, right? It's a disservice to the music also to not create some minor waves, right? I think that the longer that you play music, I think the less you're willing to put up with mistakes, whether it's your own or those of your fellow bandmates, right? I think That's not to say that you missed a note, I quit, or you're fired. I think it's a matter of like, okay, if it's a consistent mistake, address it. How can you fix it? How can it be improved? Because ultimately, your band is going to sound better if you're willing to help out your fellow bandmate. Now, I've been in situations where I've mentioned some correction or some harmony inconsistency, or not totally played correctly, and then that person still plays it wrong. And at that point, you're like, okay, maybe they're doing their best, maybe they didn't do their homework. You can only beat a dead horse, right? So many times, it's there's no point really. So I have been in that situation, and at that point, you're just like, okay, bigger picture. Why are we here? What kind of band is this? What's the goal? Who are we performing for? Are we in a studio? Does this need to be pristine? And at the end of the night, most of the time, it's just a cover band gig. It's just for, and I don't say just for, right? Fans and the public matter. However, there's a difference between trying to set something in stone in a studio scenario, recording scenario, versus a live situation at a local venue, compared to that of like, oh, this is a festival. This is a music festival. This is a jazz festival. Your best needs to be at a certain level. I think there's the saying that says, my wife says this to our kids, like, your best is enough. And your best is enough when it comes to a lot of things, family. And at the same time, just because we give our best doesn't mean that it should be the only thing that justifies our actions, right? We can always improve the next time, right? Especially the older we get, I think we make up less excuses, and we find out that, hey, at the end of the day, people don't care about your excuses. We want results. And so that will make and break, right? Somebody in a professional music performing scenario, right? One too many mistakes, maybe they'll say, hey, we're not calling this guy anymore for the studio work. We're not calling this guy for tour or whatever, because they're not dependable. They're not reliable. Maybe it's the way they dress. They always, there's something aesthetically, apparel-wise, that's off. They're not taking it seriously. They're not dressing up the part. And then musically, right? If there's notes that are, or rhythms that are not happening, somebody will learn it right. Somebody will play it right. At that point, the bigger the gig, the more we expect from musicians. And so there's my last thoughts on that. Thank you for listening. I know that this was kind of like a podcast that hit several different targets, but these are the things that have been weighing on my head and mind lately, right? And so just want to say thank you for listening to the podcast up to this point. Tomorrow I'll be 40. Hopefully I remember, to try to keep up with all the gear out there, maybe bring in some of that for topic's sake on the next podcast. And again, I'm trying to do a podcast every week. I want to say it was maybe a week ago, the last one, but it's kind of hard to do sometimes. I want it to be 2 weeks tops where I don't upload a more recent podcast, but bear with me. I'll try to keep it interesting, whether it's on a personal level, musical level, life, family level. And again, this is episode 20. We hit the 20 episode mark. Oh, wow. Okay, so episode 20. We are here, and I'll be 40 tomorrow. Enough of that. You guys take care. See you next time.